What if I told you that researchers were working on something for Parkinson's that could someday help you sleep better without another pill, without surgery, and without you having to do anything while it's happening? You simply go to sleep. And while you're completely unconscious, something is watching what your brain is doing, waiting for the exact right moment, and then responding. And the whole idea is really simple. Maybe someday you wake up feeling like you actually slept instead of spending 7 or 8 hours in bed and still waking up exhausted. Researchers have already started testing this in people with Parkinson's at home. And when I finally tell you what they're using, I think the simplicity of it is going to surprise you. Now, I'm saving that one for last because before we get there, I've got two more Parkinson's mysteries. Plus, Carmen has one of her own from the care partner side. So get comfortable and put whatever else you're doing on hold for just a few minutes and see if you can solve these before I give you the answers. Because we've got one more round of Parkinson's mysteries that are going to make you say, "Who knew?"
Welcome to Living with Parkinson's. The good, the bad, and the reality. Real talk, real life, real community with Bryce Perry. Let's begin.
Hey everyone, welcome back. And if you're new here, I'm Bryce, and this is Living with Parkinson's, the good, the bad, and the reality. And this is part 2 of Who Knew Week. And this is where we take the strange, the surprising, and sometimes the completely ridiculous things researchers are finding out about Parkinson's, and we turn them into mysteries. I'm going to give you clues, and you try to figure out what I'm talking about. And then we get to the part that matters most, the so what. What does knowing this actually mean for somebody living with Parkinson's? Does it explain something that's been happening? Does it give us something useful to pay attention to? Or does it show us something that might actually help people with Parkinson's down the road? Today, we've got all three. So let's get right into it with mystery number 1. There may be something Parkinson's is changing about your body right now that you cannot see, you cannot hear, and you probably cannot feel. And chances are you have absolutely no idea it's happening. But researchers tested something else against samples from people with Parkinson's and people without Parkinson's. And it could tell the difference with surprising accuracy. Now, that raises a pretty strange question. What exactly is Parkinson's changing? Because whatever it is, it appears to leave behind some kind of physical signature. Researchers collected simple samples from the body. Nothing dramatic, no surgery, no brain scan, no spinal tap, just a basic sample. And then they brought it to two highly trained participants. Except these participants didn't wear lab coats. They had 4 legs. Any guesses? Dogs. Yep, trained dogs. Who knew? Researchers gave trained dogs skin swabs from people with Parkinson's and people without, and the dogs could tell the difference. One detected around 70% of the Parkinson samples and correctly rejected 90% of the samples from people without Parkinson's. The other detected 80% of the samples of Parkinson's and rejected 98% of the ones that didn't have it. Now, here's the important part. The Parkinson's samples came from people who had not yet started Parkinson's medication. So the dogs weren't simply smelling levodopa or some Parkinson's pill or something sitting on the skin from medication. They were actually detecting something associated with the person's Parkinson's itself. Now, does this mean your golden retriever is your new neurologist? No. Please do not cancel your next appointment because Baxter spent 20 minutes sniffing your elbow. That is not where we're going with this. Because the really interesting part isn't the dog, it's what the dog tells us may actually be there. Parkinson's appears to change the chemistry of the oily substances produced by our skin, enough that a highly sensitive nose can detect a difference. And that is what got my attention. So, what does knowing this do for us? Today, probably not very much in terms of treatment. Nobody is setting up a Labrador clinic next Tuesday. But down the road, this could really matter because if scientists can figure out exactly what those dogs are smelling, which chemicals are different, and what combination creates the Parkinson's signature, then maybe eventually we don't need the dog. Maybe researchers can build a test that looks for the same chemical pattern. Imagine something much simpler than the way Parkinson's is diagnosed today. maybe just a skin sample, maybe some kind of chemical test, and maybe another clue that helps doctors when diagnosis isn't clear. Maybe even something that helps researchers identify changes earlier. We're not there yet, but remember, these dogs were not simply smelling Parkinson's medication. They were detecting something associated with Parkinson's itself. And that gives researchers something real to chase. Who knew that our bodies may be giving off information about Parkinson's that we can't detect, but another species can? All right, number two. This next one may help explain something that happens to some people with Parkinson's at night when nobody is really in a position to tell you exactly what happened. You go to bed, you fall asleep, and then maybe you wake up coughing. Maybe you wake up clearing your throat. Maybe you notice saliva on your pillow. Maybe you wake up suddenly and feel like something went down the wrong way. And the frustrating part is you were asleep. You weren't sitting there taking notes, and you don't know exactly what your body was doing 10 seconds before you woke up. But there is something your body is supposed to keep doing automatically all night long. You don't have to remember. You don't have to wake yourself up and consciously do it. Your brain and your body are supposed to quietly keep this process going in the background. Researchers studied people with Parkinson's and people without, and they measured the spontaneous swallowing while they were awake and while they slept. And as we've talked about before, people with Parkinson's swallowed less frequently. But what they found out was we swallow even less when we're sleeping. So suddenly, something like waking up with saliva and drool all over the pillow becomes a little bit more interesting because nighttime drooling may not simply be, I made too much saliva. Now it may be my body wasn't automatically clearing it as I slept. And if saliva or other material isn't being handled the way it normally would be, that may help explain why some people with Parkinson's report coughing, throat clearing, or other swallowing related problems during the night. Now, I want to be careful. This does not mean that every nighttime cough is a Parkinson's swallowing problem. People cough all night for all kinds of reasons, reflux, dry air, allergies, respiratory problems, or sleep issues, lots of things. But in Parkinson's, we now have another possible piece of the puzzle. If you are regularly waking up coughing, choking, clearing your throat, or noticing a lot of drool overnight, especially if you've already have swallowing problems during the day, that may be worth specifically mentioning to your healthcare team. And not just I have trouble swallowing, but I'm also noticing things happening at night. That little bit of information may matter because now we know the swallowing system can behave differently during sleep in Parkinson's too. And if you've been waking up and you've been thinking, what the heck happened while I was asleep? At least now there may be one more possible explanation. It doesn't automatically fix the problem, but it gives you a better question to ask. And sometimes that's exactly what we need. Who knew that we swallow less at night than we do during the day? No, not all of us, but a lot of us. And who knew that that's where that drooling came from? I just thought I was making too much saliva. Anyway, before I reveal my final who knew, it is time for Carmen's Care Partner Corner. And Carmen's little mystery today is one of those where the results sound almost impossible until you think about what living with Parkinson's together can actually be like. Take it away, Carmen.
Thanks, Bryce, and hello, beautiful people. Okay, care partners, here's my question. When your partner is having a really difficult Parkinson's day, where does all that stress go? We usually think about stress as something personal. Bryce has his stress, I have mine, two people, two bodies, two nervous systems. His bad day is his bad day. My stress is my stress. But researchers studying Parkinson's couples asked a much stranger question. Could the Parkinson's related distress one person is carrying actually show up physically in the other person? Not just, I feel bad because you feel bad, something they could actually measure. Researchers studied people with Parkinson's and their care partners. Both answered questions about stress and anxiety. But then the researchers collected something from both people several times a day. And when they analyzed it, they found something really remarkable. they measured cortisol in their saliva. Cortisol is one of those hormones involved in the body's stress response. And when one person in the Parkinson partnership reported greater Parkinson's related distress, their partner tended to have higher average cortisol. Think about that. The stress one person was carrying was associated with a measurable stress signal in the other person's body. Who knew? Now, this was a small study, so we can't say that this happens to everyone and to every Parkinson's couple, but I think what it does tell us is important. Researchers are starting to look at Parkinson's as something that affects the partnership, not only the person who received the diagnosis. And for me, this is where the research actually matters. Care partners are very good at saying, I'm fine. He's the one with Parkinson's. She's the one who needs the help. I'll deal with my stuff later. But if living with Parkinson's can create measurable stress in both people, then taking care of the care partner isn't something extra. It's part of taking care of the household. My stress matters too. My anxiety matters as well. My ability to recharge matters. And asking for help does not mean I'm making Parkinson's about me. It means I'm recognizing that we're both living inside the same situation. So maybe the bigger takeaway in this is that Parkinson's related stress may not stop at the person who is diagnosed. Sometimes the person standing beside Parkinson's may carry some of it in their body too. And since this is the last two new episode of the week, I think I've earned a Carmenism. If there's one thing Who Knew Week proves, it's that Parkinson's can make absolutely no sense at all, which is probably why Bryce understands it so well. Love you. Back to you, Bryce.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Carmen. I think I'm going to pretend that was a compliment. Okay. One who knew left. And this one is the one I promised you right at the beginning. Here it is, number 3. What if someday you went to bed, you put on something incredibly simple, you fell asleep, and while you were completely unconscious, it quietly monitored what your brain was doing? It waits and it waits until your brain reaches exactly the right moment during deep sleep. And then it does something very small, so small you might not even notice it. And researchers have already shown that when they time it correctly, they can actually change the deep sleep brain activity they are targeting in people with Parkinson's. Now, why would we care about that? Well, because a lot of us with Parkinson's know this feeling way too well. You go to bed, 7 hours, 8 hours if you're lucky, maybe more if you're really lucky, and you wake up thinking, how can I possibly still be this tired? You were in bed all night, but somehow your body never got the memo. And that is what makes this research interesting to me. The hope is that if researchers can help the deepest, most retroactive part of our sleep work better, then maybe someday we wake up feeling more rested, less exhausted, like the hours we spent in bed actually did something. So, what are researchers using? Some giant machine, some kind of helmet, electrical stimulation, something that looks like it belongs in a laboratory. Nope. You ready for it? A headband. Yep, who knew? A headband. You wear it while you sleep and it monitors your brain waves. And when your brain reaches exactly the right moment during deep sleep, it plays a tiny burst of sound. And the sound? It's called pink noise. And that can sound like soft static or gentle rain or a quiet whooshing sound. Whooshing, I love that sound. That is it. A headband listening to your sleeping brain and playing a tiny whoosh at exactly the right moment. And researchers found that when those sounds were timed correctly, they could increase the deep sleep brainwave activity that they were targeting in people with Parkinson's. Now, before anybody goes online tonight and searches 12 hours of pink noise for Parkinson's, that is not what this research is saying. Just playing rain sounds all night is not the same thing. The important part is the timing. The device is watching what your brain is doing and delivering this tiny sound at the precise moment the brain is most likely to respond. Researchers have already shown that people with Parkinson's could use this system at home. Now, it's still early research. It's not a treatment you can go out and get tomorrow. And researchers have not proven that everybody using it will suddenly wake up feeling fantastic. But if this works the way researchers hope, the benefit is incredibly easy to understand. Maybe someday you put on a simple headband before bed, you go to sleep, and while you're completely unconscious, it helps the deepest part of your sleep do a better job. And maybe you wake up feeling more rested. Maybe you don't spend 8 hours in bed only to wake up feeling like you were awake the entire night. Maybe you're less wiped out during the day. And maybe we eventually get some of that benefit without adding another medication. And that part excites me because Parkinson's already gives us enough pills, enough schedules, enough things to remember. Imagine if part of the answer to better sleep was put on this headband, go to sleep, let the little noise do its thing, wake up and say, wow, I slept. We're not there yet, but that's a pretty remarkable place to start. Who knew? A headband and pink noise. Need to sleep better. Well, there you go. That officially wraps up another Who Knew week. And if there's one thing I think this week proved, is that some of the strangest Parkinson's clues are hiding in the most ordinary parts of life. Things we drink, something our bodies do automatically, things that happen while we're asleep, something another species can detect that we can't, and even stress moving through a partnership in a way that researchers can actually measure. But what I really love is that the mysteries didn't all lead to the same place. Some gave us an explanation for something people may already be experiencing, and some gave us something useful to pay attention to or bring up to our healthcare team. And some gave us a glimpse of what Parkinson's care might look like down the road. For me, the one that probably made me say, who knew the loudest this week? Probably the headband. Because if you had told me that researchers were testing something that sounds like gentle rain, timed exactly the right moment in the sleeping Parkinson brain, with the hope that someday somebody might wake up feeling more rested, I would have thought you were pulling my leg. But apparently, that is where Parkinson's research is going. All right, well, that brings me to the Bryceism for Who Knew Week. You ready? Here you go. Who Knew Week is basically Parkinson's showing us that just when we think we've seen everything, it reaches into the junk drawer and pulls out something even weirder. Honestly, if next month researchers tell me Parkinson's affects how I fold a fitted sheet, well, Tony, I'm not even going to argue with you anymore. Although, if they discover how to actually fold one, that may be the biggest scientific breakthrough of the century. Now, I want to hear from you across both episodes. Which who knew made you say who knew the loudest? Which one did you genuinely not know about? The soda, the hiccups, the dogs, nighttime swallowing, Carmen's cortisol mystery, the headband, or was it one of the others? Give me, give me, give me the one that surprised you the most in the comments. And if there's something bizarre about Parkinson's you think would make a great future Who Knew mystery, let me know. Don't put it in the comments though. We'll keep it a secret. Shoot me an email, shoot me a DM in the club. Because every once in a while, the thing that sounds the most ridiculous turns out to be exactly the thing that researchers are studying. And that officially closes out another Who Knew week. Thank you so much for being here. I love you so very much. And remember, till next time, you keep showing up, you keep being real, and you keep doing life today. We'll see you.